All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Database Cloud Service Office Hours. And today I am so excited to have the Jeff Smith join us, or that Jeff Smith join us, to talk about Performance Hub. So welcome, Jeff.
You can just call me Jeff.
Okay. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks.
So why don't you go ahead and kick us off, Jeff, and talk to us about the Performance Hub.
Yeah, so this is being recorded. It'll be posted on YouTube. We have a decent audience today, so if you want to ask questions as we go, use the chat. Please stay mute until the end, just so the video is nice and easy to consume later. But this is my contact info on the screen, or at least the easiest way to find me is online. Let's talk about Perf Hub. So this is Perf Hub in two specific environments in the Oracle Cloud, in the Oracle Autonomous Data Warehouse, in the Autonomous Transaction Processing Services. I think internally we refer to these services as serverless. You may have heard that in your experience with Oracle Cloud as well. All that means is you are paying us for the use of a database that we decide in which particular server that gets plugged into at that point in time. You don't have OS access to the service, and we take care of everything for you as much as we can, at least. And the beauty of Autonomous is we're in charge of the performance and backups and all of that good stuff, so you get to concentrate on getting the most bang for your buck in terms of leveraging all of the data your business has accumulated and building all of the cool systems off of that. So you have two profiles or workloads that these are customized for. We have the data warehouse service, which was launched first. It's a columnar-based storage. It's designed for those massive amounts of data and all of those transactions that aren't really a transaction processing system where you've got orders coming in, thousands of times a second. These are more of the brainier queries that might take minutes or even hours. And then you have transaction processing, which is more of a mixed workload or a classic workload system, which you can actually do data warehouse type stuff in if you want. But when you sign up for your service, you're going to pick one of these two. Now we also have a transaction processing dedicated service. So this is a much beefier environment. It's not serverless. You get access to the entire server, so to speak. You're not sharing resources with others. It costs a little bit more. And it does have tooling support, but what I'm talking about today is the Performance Hub that was added for these two environments. And I'm going to be showing you some queries running an autonomous data warehouse, but the way you access it and the way you use it would be exactly the same as if you were in the transaction processing environment. So as of late last week or early this week, when you come into your console, instead of clicking, when you come into your page, instead of clicking on Service Console to download your wallet and maybe access SQL Developer Web or change someone's password, there's a new link there that says Performance Hub. It does exactly what you think. If I click that, it's going to open up a dialog, and you're going to see screens that are going to look very, very familiar to you if you've been using EM Express, especially the 19C version where the interface has been upgraded from the old Flash presentation. This is all new rich HTML5, and if you really care about the particulars, it uses the Oracle Jet components. So this is the same code, the same screens that you would see in 19C EM Express. They're just being now hosted for your autonomous services and access there via the console. I have a few screenshots I'm going to show, and then I'm going to jump live into an actual cloud environment running an actual query. It's not just about real-time SQL monitoring. You also have access to your active session history. analytics, and you have the windowing feature where you can zoom in on a particular point in time where resources or wait events spike, and I'll show you that in a bit. But for me, the biggest bang for your buck's always been about real-time SQL monitoring, so that's probably going to be what I talk about most today. It's the same information you would see in SQL Developer and Enterprise Manager. Now it's just directly in your Cloud Console. Got my extra information available there in the plan stats, and it's very responsive. As I click on these things, you'll see how quickly the screen repaints, but all of the nitty-gritty detail that you want to see about your plans are going to be available there. So for our autonomous services, you actually have anywhere between 3 and I think 5 or 6 services, or you can think of them as listener services that you can connect to. So there's like a low, medium, high, there's like a parallel. And what this does is when you connect on that specific service, it puts you in a consumer group that gives you basically more or less horsepower, more access to parallel service or parallel query degree or processes, and more access to CPU and all of that good stuff. So here I'm running a query in the high group, so I'm greedy. I'm like, give it to me. I want as much as you can throw at me. And so I can see that for my session if I mouse over where it shows the username there. And then the other nice thing is, so I've got my Cloud Console. I can see what the developers are doing and how awesomely or probably poorly their queries are running. And when I need to send them my findings, it's very easy to offload what I'm seeing here in my Cloud Console to a flat HTML file that I could just email them. So you don't have to give them necessarily the administrator database credentials or access to the Cloud Consoles. You can just send them the offline reports, and they render exactly the same as they would as you would be in the console. The only difference is if you save this while the query is executing, you're going to get the snapshot of what it looks like as it's executing. So maybe you want to wait till that finishes or wait till you give up. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to get out of PowerPoint and go into the interface. And for the quick demo I'm going to do today, I'm going to take advantage of a new sample schema that is there by default in your autonomous data warehouse service. It's the star schema benchmark, and it's been abbreviated to SSB. And if you pull up the docs, if you pull up your platform as a service docs for autonomous data warehouse, you go into the appendixes, chapter D or book B, whatever you want to call about that. And we have some basic queries and also some things to take advantage of the new analytic views. I can't remember if analytic views are new for 12CR2 or 18, but so I've just picked a few of these queries for giggles to run to demonstrate how it works. I could have ran these queries from SQL Developer Web if I wanted to, or from the Apex database workshop, but I know these queries are going to take a long time to run for my service, so I just did it here in my on-prem. So I'm logged in as user Jeff, which I created from Autonomous Data Warehouse, and I've downloaded the wallet. And for my connection, you can see I'm connected to this high service, which puts me in that high-level resource consumer group. So here it is running, and it's taking a long time to run, and I'm starting to get upset. And I'm like, what is it doing? Where is it at? Did I time out? Looks like we timed out. Yep. So let's log in from scratch. One of the key pieces of autonomous is how severely we look at security. So when you log in your access cookie token, I think they're good for about 30 minutes, give or take. And then when it expires, you'll see what we just saw, and you'll need to relog in to get a new token or cookie. So I'm going to click on Performance Hub. And I can't fake this. You can see how quickly it's going to come up. And you can probably see when I kicked off this query, so I can move this window if I want and kind of go backwards in time a little bit and tool around in the active session history bits if I'd like. I'm going to instead click over here on SQL monitoring. And here is my query that's running. It can tell me it's still executing. And it's been executing for a while. I don't want you folks to make any judgments about how good the autonomous data warehouse is based on the execution profile of this query that I happen to be running. My service, I get one CPU. Now I could enable auto scaling and say, hey, I'm ready to open up my credit card a little bit and dump more CPU in here for me to get a better response on the queries. But for demo and for tooling purposes, as product managers, we try to stay in the single CPU because we don't want to use all that extra money for a faster demo. But for you as consumers, you have that ability if you want. You can come here and scale up, down, and say, "Hey, I'm totally cool to auto scale. Give me more." Back in Performance Hub and SQL monitoring. And so if I click on where I actually see the SQL ID, that brings up the report. And if you've seen a real-time SQL monitoring report before, this should be very, very familiar to you. Things to be aware of. Different tools have different visual indicators as to showing you where in the plan what the current lines executing are. In this interface, they choose to do that with the slightly background colored indicator on the line number. If you were in the SQL Developer desktop tool, you would see a little spinning widget here showing that these are the two active lines. Littered throughout this plan, you can mouse over all kinds of different things to get exact metrics if you'd like. I can see what the access predicates are. So somewhere in my query, it's saying where item 3 is equal to D date key. If I click on the binoculars, there could be an unlimited amount of extra information there that's being stored in an XML column in the plan table, I think. If there were plan notes in here, you would see them here. So I can see I've got a degree of parallelism 1, because my service, that's all it has access to. Dynamic sampling is on. All of these charts up here, you can mouse over for information. And if I were to save this as an offline report, it's exactly the same as I'm seeing here. All of the mouse overs will work. All of the data is going to be there contained. So here I can see who I'm logged in as, what tool I'm using to execute this, what my session ID is, the service that I'm in on, the consumer group that I'm in on. But on SQL text, I get a somewhat nicely formatted display there of the query. And this is text, it's not a picture, so I can copy this out and go play with it on my own in SQL Plus or SQL CL or SQL, whatever your front end is for doing things directly on the database. Here on activity, I've got a couple different ways of looking at this. I can see per plan line. So I can see over time, line 10 is pretty greedy. And then It goes back to the main select. I can also look at resource type. So this is where you can see the actual type of wait events that are causing havoc. So again, very responsive. I'm connected to a data center in Virginia. They're in the DC area, but I ran this yesterday connected to a data center in Germany, and I've done this once in APAC. I've done it in Canada, the Western US. Apart from the normal latency that you would see in terms of speed of light to get there, they've done a really nice job of making these very, very responsive. Part of that's benefit of the Oracle jet libraries that we're using, and the other part is, just how fast the database is to respond to the REST services that we publish to allow you to come in and get this data. For the charts, some of these have various charts you can toggle between. Again, when you export these to HTML, they've done a really good job of making sure all of these come out just the way you see them here live in the browser. Let us come back in and let's look at the active session history stuff a bit. So up top, based on how we've decided to retain information in ASH, is going to determine how far back you can go. So if I say last 8 hours, you can see where I was probably playing with this earlier to get ready, because I like to do my homework. But as I tighten this window, again, I think you'll see pretty responsively the information on the bottom repaint to indicate that we're just looking at this specific time range. So you can use this to zoom in a specific time period and then use the slider control to say, okay, I'm seeing the owie point here. Show me what was happening below. And you've got, gosh, tons of different ways to slice this data. I like to look at things in terms of weight classes, but that's just how I was taught 20 years ago. I'm not sure if that's still the way to do it. Then you've got SQL IDs that were happening in this time period. So this one looks worse than this one, but everything's relative. Here's a breakdown of that thing that happened at that point in time. If it's available, it'll show us. Again, very responsive. I can't fake this. This isn't a video. I'm not that good. So for me, I'll just say for PerfHub, it doesn't have 100% of the features that you would have seen in the 12c Enterprise Manager. But I will say we've taken the top level things you would need most and converted them from Flash to HTML5. And I know that we get to do monthly updates on the tooling for these services. So I think you can expect the screens here to progress in terms of features. But if you've got a hot query or you've got a laggy app running and you're wondering what's going on, in like 1 or 2 clicks, you're going to get to where you need to be to see exactly what's happening. So the nice thing about real-time SQL monitoring is seeing exactly where the time's being spent in the plan on your query. Did I miss anything from the slides? Oh, so I'm just want to say, since I happen to be the product manager for these things as well, not Apex, but I'm a friend of the family in terms of Apex. You're also going to have access to doing things directly in your browser as well, in addition to Performance Hub. So you're going to be able to log in and run queries, build RESTful services, and also build applications using Apex. So if you actually go into your service console, you'll see there's some additional screens and metrics here. So I guess as of 10 days ago, this is what you had in terms of that same level of info. So I think the Perf Hub is a really super nice upgrade over this. But if you happen to already be in your console and you want to take a look in here, this stuff is there. Here's where you can download your wallet. You can also launch SQL Developer Web. So SQL Developer Web is directly in your browser, an interface that allows you to do things like create tables, run queries, do data modeling. So I'm going to do something I don't recommend you folks do, and that is log in with the administrator account. I would say only log in with the administrator account in general for when you need to do things like, oh, I don't know, scale up the service, create a user, expire a wallet, that sort of thing. But when you're ready to do true application work, that's when you need to create your application schema, your data schema, your API schema, however you want to split that out in the ThickDB world. See if I can type the password the first time correctly. Okay, I think that's right. Nope. Sometimes it takes me 3 times. That's how good my password is. We'll give you a little desktop tour. I'm not going to give a full demo of this. I actually have an office hours scheduled for this in a couple of weeks. But what I was going to say is let's tool over to that SSB schema and see what's in there. So there's just a few tables. By the way, these are huge tables. When you do your basic select star froms, they'll run pretty fast. Customer where. And so we tried to give you a fairly complete version of the worksheet in the browser here. And you can tell me that it's trying to help me. It's giving me 2 indicators that I'm an idiot. Not really an idiot, but I made an idiot mistake. So I've also got the little helpers here. So I can say, I don't know, it's not null, something like that. And I can run this, or I can also ask for an execution plan. And see that below. Not as nice as what you see in PerfHub, but good to get the job done, I think. The cool thing I wanted to show was over here in Data Modeler, what is this new SSB schema? What's it look like? So let's actually add all of the tables. So here's what it could look like. I can also tell SQL Developer that I'd like to visualize this as a star schema. And then as I click on one of these objects, I get all of the metadata to the right. So you might learn better when you see things visually like this, or you're cool just to render everything as a DDL script. If you want to see that, we can do that for you as well. So here's the code behind the object. Here's the nice thing too about this sample schema. Grant read on the object to public. So anyone that's got access to your database is going to be able to play with the star scheme benchmark. I think that's what it's called. Okay, so I want to leave plenty of time for questions. I want to remind everyone that for this particular channel, the Database Cloud Service Office Hours, your next opportunity to hang out with us is going to be in August with Product Manager David Peak, who is our expert and keeps an eye on things for Apex. This session and every other office hour session, and these have been running for like 2 years now, can be found at asktom.com, asktom.oracle.com. And you can also subscribe to those, which means you're going to get email reminders if you want those. So, Tammy, do you want to turn off the recording and then we can let people be as brutally honest as they want with their questions?
Sounds good. I just want to thank everybody. Thanks, Jeff, and thank you for everybody for attending. So.